Matrix is proud to be the exclusive sponsor of Shorts with Liz Clark. With over 20 years as a dedicated supporter of the fitness industry, we're thrilled to continue a partnership geared towards success for all those who believe in better.
All right, welcome. Hello, listeners. I am so excited to welcome Susie Ellis as our next guest on the Shorts with Liz series. For those that are not familiar with Susie, she is the co-founder and chair of the Global Wellness Institute and the Global Wellness Summit. Today, we're going to explore the trends in global wellness of 2025, and we have a lot to get into, but specifically some things like what's going on in the Middle East with wellness, and their ambitions, what's going on with longevity's impact on work, the rise of augmented biology. Susie's also going to talk a little bit today about teen wellness, also the supplement paradox, and the reimagining of saunas for modern users. So that is a lot to get into, but we have, I think, the world's best expert to be able to talk to about it today. Plus, there's also another growing theme on analog wellness versus a digital world. I think that's really interesting, and I can't wait to talk to Susie about that. So I think today, whether you are a wellness professional or just somebody that is curious about wellness in your lifestyle, it'll be a really interesting episode. So welcome, Susie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Liz.
Yes. So let's just go ahead and get started. So for those that aren't familiar, Susie, talk a little bit about the Global Wellness Institute as well as the summit, and provide a little bit of the history of these organizations and your involvement.
Sure. Well, my whole life has been in the spa and wellness arena. And we started the Global Wellness Summit about 20 years ago because there was no one gathering for spas around the world. There was Europe and there was Asia, and the US. So we started the first, what at that time was called the Global Spa Summit, which then became the Global Wellness Summit. And we meet at a different part of the world every year. Last year we were in Scotland. This year we're going to be in the UAE. And so we gather a lot of people, and that's really where our trends, that informs our trends, because we always look global and we're always looking for what's trending around the world. And then the Global Wellness Institute is our nonprofit sister organization, and it started 10 years ago. And it was as a result of all the research we were doing. We were doing a lot of research, and we're known for our research, especially the Global Wellness Economy Monitor, because we study what is being spent in wellness under the 11 sectors that we define as part of wellness. And those figures come out every year. So the Global Wellness Institute does the research. We also have initiatives. We have a wellness moonshot. We do wellness evidence. We have a relationship with the BBC, and we have a geography of wellness program. So the nonprofit and all those figures, by the way, are available to everyone for free. So on our website, all the numbers, that's something we give to the industry because we think it helps everyone, all of us, make better decisions. So yeah. I've just been involved with that from, many, many years. And it's just a really exciting time right now, as you know, too, Liz, that since the pandemic, there's so much interest in health and wellness and fitness. And so it's exciting times out there.
Right. So, Susie, the Global Wellness Summit has actually just released the Future of Wellness 2025 report. And if you don't know what this report is, it's fantastic. I love it. I look forward to it every year. There is so much good stuff in there. And so thank you for what you do for producing it. So, but talk a little bit about some of the context that goes on in conducting the research and the vast database that's involved in this and producing the report. I think so many people are involved with either reading research or writing research or using the research, but having the right sample size is really important. And with the global report, how do y'all do that?
Well, trends is one of my passions, and I've been doing this for many, many years. And we've gotten better and better at it, I would say, every year. And what we do now is every January is when we come out with our top trends for that coming year. And it's a study for the entire year before that we are looking at what's happening. A lot of our conversations are global, and of course, our summit is global. And then we have experts that we listen to, and we just have learned how to sort of discern when something is a little bit more on the cutting edge. We don't want to report on just trends that everyone is seeing. Uh, we want to look. We want to push the envelope a little bit going forward. What are we seeing that's emerging that we think is important? So I have the 10 trends for 2025. Do you want me to just read them real quick?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, I'll just read them and you can ask me whatever questions, but I think it's fun to know all of them. And the first one is analog wellness, and the second is sauna reimagined. The third is the supplement paradox. Then teen wellness is a trend we're seeing, watershed wellness, augmented biology, longevity redefines work, and the last three, wellness tackles addiction, then wellness on the line, and the Middle East's wellness ambitions. Those were the 10. And our report is, over 100 pages. And we have a writer and an expert that actually writes all of these trends. So there's a lot of background as to why this is a trend, what's fueling it, and what we see as the future. So it's pretty comprehensive. And yeah, so
Well, thank you for sharing that. And that's the thing that I love so much about this report, because it's not the specifics of like, well, more people are moving weights into their gyms and less
yeah.
cardio. Like, right. That's an important report as well. Right. But this is, the broader sort of more macro. And I think one of the things in that report is that you mentioned is the great logging off. And I would love, for you to talk about what that means as sort of the rise of analog wellness and the shift to sort of pre-digital experiences is really fascinating right now. And for you all to have made that, a trend, I think is really important, and one that probably a lot of people didn't see coming, because there's so much interest in the wearables and the apps and all of that that's going on. But talk a little bit about what that looks like for y'all.
Sure. And you might have noticed that is our first trend, and just a little something that we don't talk a lot about. But usually our first trend is our ta-da trend. And that is the case with this one too, analog wellness. One of the things that we're seeing is, and there's certainly been a trend towards people being aware that, all this digital is, causing angst and, anxiety, and we have to, monitor for kids and so on, and we ourselves are recognizing we have to balance and so on. But what we're seeing is that we really are seeing that this is the year where people are saying enough. They really are recognizing that all this digital is occasionally too much. I mean, there's a lot of good with it, but there's also a lot of bad with it. And so the analog wellness is actually beyond just digital detox. Digital detox, we've talked about that. Most of the gyms out there, spas, have dealt with that. In fact, I don't know if you saw on White Lotus, they are at a place in Thailand, and part of their digital detox was that they took the phones away from everyone that signed in. That's something that we have seen, and that's been around. But this analog wellness is a little further, to where people are making an effort to engage with things pre-digital. So just as an example, if you're going to a spa or a fitness camp, or a retreat, that it's not just put your digital away, but it's also, let's do some arts and crafts. Let's sew. Let's do scrapbooking. Let's read. Let's go. Let's have a reading retreat. So there's more involvement in things like vinyl, the textures from the past, doing things that were more popular before there was even digital, because it's comfortable, it's quieting, it's relaxing. So the whole analog wellness is a lot about, even to the point where there are things in some places where you're going back to like what you would experience on a farm, being with animals, and maybe doing some gardening, things that are nothing to do with digital, that, out in nature and just having uh, more of a feeling of the past where things were just a little more slower for one thing, and just not having that digital interference.
Yeah, I was watching actually Jimmy Fallon the other night, and one of the funny, ironic things that he pointed out with the digital detox was um, when people go on their social media to announce that they're taking a break from social media. Just the irony of that,
Yeah,
it's funny.
exactly.
So I'm great. I love to hear that. And then the textures from the past, right? As I love vinyl, I love music, and I love all of those things that you speak of the gardening and reading and sewing. So that's fantastic for a trend coming. So let's shift a little bit over to sort of the sauna and supplement
Mhm.
conversation, if you will, because I think that we're seeing, and especially in our universe, a lot of consumer behavior changing when it comes to both of those things. And saunas and supplements are obviously very, very different things, but I think the trends might be the same. And so speak a little about how you're seeing behaviors change, and then if businesses in the industry are adapting to these changes.
Well, I think the trend on sauna reimagined is an exciting trend for the industry, because what's happening is that two things are happening. One is research is showing the value of sauna bathing and also contrast therapy. So sauna and cold, ice baths are very popular, and contrast therapy. So the technology and the research is showing that. The other thing that's happening is that we realize, especially since COVID, that people really want to get together, that being part of a community, connecting with other people is really part of being well. And, the whole loneliness epidemic. And so what we're seeing is that, there's not as many people necessarily that want to go out and drink every night. There's sort of a sober, not sort of, but there is a sober curious trend. Fewer people, younger people are not necessarily wanting to just go out and have it be all about alcohol. So here we have something that is communal, and it's healthy, and you introduce people, and it's something that is also not somewhat, but very new in many ways, because what's happening is that the saunas, first of all, they're becoming more interesting. They're not just a little box in a gym, which, there are some of those, but especially the sauna has emerged in Europe. They are doing, for example, sauna aufguss. Those are sauna events where the sauna will be, there'll be 30 people in the sauna, 40 people in the sauna, and there will be little skits, a little shows that are done, all together, where people enjoy the time in the sauna together. I've been to a few of these, and you go in and there's 30, 40 people. In Europe sometimes they're all naked, not so
I
much
was
in
going
the
to
US.
ask about that. I'm glad.
In Norway, and those places. But the sauna Aufguss really started there. Aufguss means pouring on, and so they have saunameisters in Europe. So that the idea is that a saunameister would go into the sauna and wave towels around and help get the heat up in the sauna. And so over time, this became an art of sound Aufguss. So people got better and better at swinging the towels around, at maybe adding um, uh, some aroma onto the ice balls that they would put onto the sauna cold. And so this got more and more and more elaborate. Then some people added music and then lighting, and now it has become a big show. And it's you can call it an event sauna, and people charge for that. People will pay $30 to be part of an event sauna, and so you can have a lot of people. There are some saunas that would take over 100 people, and so this whole event sauna part, it's fun. You're in there with other people, and believe me, the time goes fast. If someone is dancing or doing a little skit, So the sauna part becomes fun. And then everyone can go out and do, oftentimes in Europe, you go into a lake nearby, you do something cold, or you take a cold shower. So the whole sauna culture, and it's become something, there's Saunaaufguss competitions so that people are competing for more and more interesting events. And then the research, and Susan Soberg from Europe has done a lot of the research on contrast therapy, how valuable it is to heat the body and then go into cold, which is why the cold plunges are also very, very popular. And what I learned from her is that it doesn't have to be the whole body that goes into the cold. It can actually be valuable to put maybe just the arm into cold. But nevertheless, a lot of people, younger people, are finding also they're more likely to be able to go into the cold if there's groups of people around. So the sauna reimagined, I think, from a business point of view, is something for people to look at. How can they do this? Or even if hotels and so on, you might not have the sauna in your specific location, but maybe you can find one that could house an event that has to do with sauna.
Yeah, I will tell you, we're just coming back from Las Vegas and our trade show, and some of the emerging trends I saw there were, yeah, a dry cold plunge, which was really cool. That the whole body goes into, and then followed by red light therapy, and just a lot of really cool things going on as far as trends and different sort of machines and ways to make it happen that are so traditionally the big room. But you got to be careful. You might with all the activity you're talking about in this sauna, they might film a Les Mills live in there, and so those are outrageous if you've ever seen one of those. But I wouldn't put it past them because those are really cool events too. But let's shift a little, because I think one of the other themes, Susie, was on the rise of teen wellness as a key trend. And I think with that, there are both challenges and opportunities. And I would love for you to think about, what does that mean to cater to these younger generations for their wellness needs?
One thing we have found, and I'm sure you've seen this trend too, is that, teens are challenged with, loneliness, and part of it is the, digital addictions and so on. And in the past, and, gyms have this, spas have this, there's been a lot of like, you can't use this until you're 18 years old or whatever the age thing is. And yet young teens, could really benefit from some of what is offered, whether it's exercise or mindfulness or meditation or yoga. There could be a lot of value, and there is a lot of value for teens. So we're seeing that more businesses are starting to address. What could they do for teens in terms of what they offer anyway, but maybe packaged a little bit differently so that it is teen oriented. And so that's an exciting development. It used to be that people are looking at like young kids, maybe have little spa parties and that sort of thing, and then there's adults. But that middle part, um, and even for males especially, suicide is up, and the importance of teens' mental health is very valuable. So that we're seeing people are paying more attention to in a variety of ways, whether they offer something, a special program in their facilities, or certain times when the teens can use facilities that usually they wouldn't be able to use. And and then just one last thing I'll mention that was interesting, because after we came out with this trend, we always do a press event in New York in January, and we have a lot of press that come. And sure enough, and Beth McGordy, who's our trend uh, guru, she did an interview with Financial Times, and interestingly enough, they took the issue of teen and wellness and pointed out, and this is a challenge too, that a lot of teens are online buying beauty products that are, they're much younger. They're, getting into all kinds of things that teens normally would not get involved with, but they're very involved with their appearance and they're purchasing a lot of product and so on. And so there is that, um, you know, there's peer pressure to look really good, to look a certain way. And so the whole thing with teens is that there's, both things to be looking at. There's, some things that we in our industry might be contributing to some of the teen issues, body size and so on. And yet also we need to sort of shift our thinking to what can we do that could be helpful for teens. So I think there's an opportunity there, and the good news is we're seeing more being addressed, but it's just the beginning. We don't see nearly enough.
Yeah, I'll just say as somebody, as a parent of three kiddos, but my middle is a 17-year-old boy and my younger girl is 11, so a preteen. And we are having those challenges all the time about getting off your device and moving your body and getting outside and doing things that are healthy. And one of the things when my daughter's not running track or playing soccer is she wants to go to Sephora to exactly, get
Exactly.
beauty products. And I was actually talking to a Sephora exec last week who said the average price spent at every checkout at Sephora is $79, and that's the average. So you can
Wow.
only imagine how that's exploded with the teen generation, even the preteen. And I think you're right that that is really just beginning, and we're going to see a lot more coming out of both of those things. So thanks for raising it. All right, now let's go back to the supplement paradox and what you're seeing going on with that in this universe.
Yeah, so supplements has been something that has been around a long time, especially in gyms and so on. But now we're seeing, dare I say, supplements on steroids. There's more information about supplements. So one thing that's happening is that again, technology and advanced, science is showing some very good value with certain supplements. And so there is more and more promotion around it. It's also a good way for a lot of places to make money because your supplements sell and it's kind of a reoccurring revenue stream. And so there is a lot of emphasis on selling supplements. You also have a lot of celebrities now that are coming out with their supplement. I think of David Beckham, but so many other celebrities. So there's a lot going on about supplements, but it's a wild, wild west. It's hard to know what is in the supplement, is what they say in it really in it. And then different countries have different rules about what you can sell. I think in Europe you can't buy melatonin, without a prescription, but here you can. And so the whole thing is a quagmire. So the person that wrote that for us is someone that really has a good balance, and she talked about the supplement paradox, some of the newer things that we're starting to see in supplements, and some of the red flags, and yet also how to be a smarter consumer. So this is something that I think we're going to see a lot more of. Just as an example, some places, I mean, Clinique La Prairie, which is a place in Switzerland, and they're opening in other places with their longevity clinics. This whole longevity trend is a big one. They are selling a bottle of vitamins for $750.
Mm.
So you see, there's more and more money to be made. There's more, probably those are fantastic. Whatever's in there is probably way, way more advanced than maybe something we would buy, at our local places. But that's the paradox with, here's something that can be very good, but it also can be very misleading. So it's a wild, wild west out there for
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of my girlfriends here runs the International Fragrance Association. And
supplements.
so you even see what's going on with the fragrance sector and how it's touching into sort of these supplements and expanding. And you mentioned Clinique, it's on her board. And so yeah, it's really evolving quickly and rapidly. And I think it'll be interesting here in the US. We see what happens with this administration and the FDA, and how much, they will or will not be involved in approving some of these supplements moving forward. I think is going to be something really interesting to watch. Okay, let's move over now to the Middle East, if we can. As I think they are an emerging key player in the global wellness space and in the fitness space, and they have made massive investments in preventative healthcare, and I think more to come in wellness tourism, that type of thing. And I know you mentioned, obviously, you're having your summit in the Middle East. I'll tell you, we at HFA are very close to a partnership for an event in Dubai next fall, which is very exciting. But can you share just a little bit more about the vision and the role that the Middle East is playing in shaping some of these global wellness trends?
Yes, the Middle East, 10 years ago, I don't think many of us were thinking much about what's going on in the Middle East when it comes to wellness. And I find still when I go there, wellness is not something that is all that well understood. How they would define wellness, and yet one thing that's happened in the Middle East, and this I think is part of the reason it is now much more on the map in a lot of ways, is that the governments in the Middle East, have these vision documents where they are promoting a vision that they have for 2030, for example, and that includes a lot of modernization. And I think initially it started with, and especially in Dubai, trying to diversify away from oil. They were so much into oil and everything was about oil. And yet they realized that in time they needed to be an attractive place for people to come for tourism. And so, little by little, beautiful hotels, great service, cuisine, all of these kinds of things have emerged. And what they saw, which of course we see at the Global Wellness Institute because we do the research, is that wellness tourism is a very large sector because wellness tourism is growing faster than tourism in general. And the whole wellness economy is a $6.3 trillion economy. That's a huge number. That's a bigger economy than pharmaceuticals. It's, it's a very, very large number. And wellness tourism in particular is a very fast way for a country to get back on its feet after COVID. So the Middle East, they're very good at studying what's going on. And so they recognize that this is an opportunity. They also, at the same time, have an issue personally with their people are not necessarily all that healthy. There's a lot of obesity in the Middle East. There's a lot of diabetes. And so having more involvement that might trickle down to health for their people is also something. And then the Middle East has been very good with the whole issue of sports. And so they have, stepped up and they host a lot of the major events, but they have also found that, sports is something that can contribute to the health of their populations. So for a lot of reasons, and they also like luxury travelers and they love the luxury lifestyle and, hospitality, all the hotels, having wellness and beautiful gyms and spas, it's as part of what they're offering is very attractive. So in a lot of ways, the Middle East is becoming, they've been thinking a little bit outside of the box. One example, and Liz, you're probably aware of the brand Cyro that Kerzner International introduced. Cyro is the first fitness and recovery hotel. The entire hotel has that as a focus. I think that's fascinating. I'm going to go over and see that later this year, but they've already opened their second Cyro. They're going to be opening hundreds of them. And so here's the idea of hospitality and fitness coming together because that is something that they see for the future. And the other thing I would say that I'm impressed with, and I was a little leery when I first learned about, for example, Saudi Arabia, they're doing a mala that's going to have 30 uh, hotels, big brand hotels with spa and wellness components, and that includes Clinique La Prairie, and it includes Equinox and Six Senses and so on. But the other thing that I have been reading about is their commitment to sustainability. And I was a little bit, I was surprised because I don't think about the Middle East and sustainability, but I can see they have really put a lot of thought into this, and that is part of how they're developing. So the Middle East has major wellness ambitions, and I would say it's exciting because they have a vision for it. They put resources behind it, and it'll be interesting to see how it develops.
Yes. So I think, first of all, when you go to visit Cryo, give me a call. I'd love to go with you on that because I'm dying to see it myself. And, you mentioned, and I know this was a trend that came out in the past too, but about travel and tourism and really what that looks like. I'll tell you, a funny story. My husband and I went to Nicaragua, to a little resort a couple years ago, and mainly because it was recommended for everything you talked about, the cuisine, the service. And it was also a yoga retreat was going on, and so we went, oh, this is cool. We didn't even know that. And so we spent, I think it was our anniversary our whole time with, on a yoga retreat, which wasn't the plan, but it was awesome. So, um, great. So let's move over a little bit to sort of the trends in policy, because I think that's something that you all have looked at in great detail. And so how do you see some of these consumer driven wellness trends influencing policymaking at the global level, in particular, of course, how it comes to this sector of health and wellness?
Well, I've been in this a long, long time, many, many decades, even before, we started the summit and the Institute. And we've never seen a lot of interest, decades ago. We didn't see a lot of interest from the medical community. That has changed. Now the medical community is very interested in wellness and, working alongside of. Longevity is one of the trends that is the reason where wellness and medical are coming together, quite a bit. And as far as governmental involvement, that has been very, very recent, but it's something that we recognize is important. So we started seeing more governments reach out to us for our research. Ministers of tourism for the wellness tourism research, but also governments because they're needing now to have a wellness policy. There's, really it's a grassroots kind of thing. People recognize that having a healthy population is lowers healthcare costs, and people are asking for it. So we decided, our researchers felt that they would like to contribute to the conversation by creating a wellness policy research and wellness policy toolkits. So this is really where we are addressing governments in particular, but it's also for businesses in general, because the bottom line is, and this is just something I have learned over the years, is that there's only so much a person can do on their own, and a school can do, and a business can do. When a government does something, it can have a massive, massive impact. And so that's the idea. If governments get involved, and there are places around the world where the governments are much more involved in the health and wellness of their people. And when they put certain things into place, that can make a huge difference to the health of the population. So wellness policy, takes thought where the people in government, because the people in government generally are not very, understanding of what wellness is, or what can you do as a government that can help people's health. So these toolkits and wellness policy in particular are some ways to, get people physically involved with physical activity or mental health, or with travel, or with healthy eating. And there's a lot of ways that people don't always think about wellness as the large ecosystem it is. But in our bubble chart, the research, we have physical activity is a very large part of wellness, healthy eating and nutrition, wellness tourism, the whole beauty sector, personal care and beauty, mental wellness, wellness real estate, public health, thermal springs, spas, and workplace wellness. Those are all categories that the governments could get involved with, and in more and more they are. And so we're seeing more and more of that. So we have these toolkits. They're available for free on the website, which is wellnessinstitute.org. And I'm excited. And in particular, we're going to be in the UAE for a summit. And I have to say, the Middle East is a good example of where the governments have gotten involved, earlier than many others. Like you said, with our administration here in the U.S. I mean, before this, we hadn't heard much about our administration getting all that involved with wellness. But I think maybe this time around we'll have a little more conversation about it.
Yeah, we're definitely leaning into the Make America Healthy again and how we can be a part of that solution. So, Susie, you mentioned ministers of health and folks reaching out to you proactively on this. Do you have any advice for governments, though, and policymakers who are really trying to get some of this wellness programming into their national strategies? Is it about reverting back to your toolkit, or, what would you say to government and policymakers to be more involved?
Well, I think that, certainly the toolkits are helpful because it gets them thinking. But I think thinking in terms of public and private um, partnerships is a good way to go, because the private sector is doing things like, look at all that you're doing, with all the network that you have. You're doing a lot. But you could also be working with governments. Governments could be working with you. They could be supporting what you're doing, promoting what you're doing. And, nature is a big thing. More parks, more green space is something that has certainly been shown to be valuable. So there's a lot the governments can do. I mean, there's some governments. China is now having an obesity program for 3 years. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but that's a new one. Thailand the prime minister just announced that they are putting a lot of emphasis into wellness tourism because they see the figures, not only how it helps their government, but also that it helps, more people being involved in wellness. And so we see more and more examples of that around the world. There's no doubt about it. I think, to me, the bottom line is that once the research shows that more involvement with wellness uh, activities and getting consumers involved lowers healthcare costs, then more and more people will be involved, including governments. But they're already starting to just be educated a little bit about what is wellness.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask you one last question and then a final question, because we are coming up on time. And like I said, we have so many of these trends that we could dig into even deeper. So we're going high level. But another focus of the report is on our aging population. And so speaking, kind of reverting back to policies, is that what are maybe some wellness policies that could be adapted to support older populations and address the demands of an aging workforce, especially in light of all of these other trends that we've talked about?
Well, interesting that the longevity redefines work trend is a little different than most people think. It's actually recognizing that in the future, there are going to be a lot more older people working because of the demographics. There's not enough young people, countries, including the US, not having enough babies. And so, in order to fill the workforce, we are going to be using older people, and older people want to work. And there's a lot of pluses with that. So, one of the important things to focus on is that it's important for us to have our older people, and as we are older people, to be healthy enough to work. So, and then of course, there are some unique situations with recognizing that, older, people might have some, limitations. But really, if people are healthy, they'll be able to work. The whole idea of retiring at 65 is, I think, going to, go out the window. A lot of people want to work much longer than that age group, and people are healthier and can do so. So I think it's a whole mind shift that, there's not going to be retirement at 65, and maybe that's a great thing.
Yep. I know I'm not planning on retiring at 65. I think, and I think that that's going to be interesting because we've seen sort of shifts in that even through COVID, and what that means is going to be really interesting, but we don't need to go backwards on that. So let's just, in closing a little bit here, is that I would love for you to speak a little bit about what you think, honestly, the future holds for this global wellness movement and trends like augmented biology and wellness tourism evolve over the next decade. It's a big question, but I know you've got a big crystal ball, and tell us what your predictions are.
I do have a crystal ball that I look into all the time. So I think that, well, the momentum that we're seeing now for wellness, I've never seen it more robust. So we see no end in sight. In fact, I would say that in the future, and I've already, been hearing this from people in the travel world, all travel is wellness travel. When people travel, they want to feel better after they travel and while they're traveling. So this whole wellness thing is part of travel going forward. And I would say that in the next 20 years, or well, it's hard to know for 20 years what's going to happen, but what is happening in technology is so exciting. And AI and all of the things that we're gaining from technology advancement and medicine, in addition to people getting more involved themselves, is that we're going to see things that we can't even predict now. When I was at an event, it was at Lake Nona. One gentleman who was on stage was one of the guys, maybe it's the first guy or the only one, who had a chip put into his brain where he is now able to have more mobility, which was impossible before. I mean, that's just, oh my gosh, it is so exciting. And so I think the importance for the medical and technology and wellness is huge. But I will say this, is that when it comes to down to it, what's really got the most research behind it is that movement and exercise is such a great contributor to health. That and healthy eating and good sleep and mindfulness and so on, those are the core parts of it. So as much as all of this augmented and biohacking and all of that goes, and some of it can and has been very helpful, if we stay with the core principles, I think we're going to have the best of both worlds. So as you can see, I'm very optimistic, and I just don't see it slowing down at all.
Oh, well, what a wonderful way to end this episode of Shorts. Thank you so much, Susie Ellis, for joining us, for sharing your trends, sharing your insights, and being just on the forefront of all these cool things that are coming at us. So thank you for joining, and really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Liz. Appreciate it too.